Take me under your wing, crack of thunder, as a wild bird sing. You can hear hunger crying out, a sonic echo that leaves no room for doubt. All the shots bring it back to what it's not. Make a move, do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all
rounds of racing at Silverstone. Last week, we head on over to France, to the north of France and Le Mans for this rounds number 8 and 9 of the World GT Championship with your sponsors of Simitech and Free M. It's Paul Smith, and for this week, Justin Prince joining me in the commentary booth. And Justin, 2 40-minute races of action around Le Mans. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yes, indeed it is. And not only that, when it comes to this track, lots of chances to be able to overtake, but lots of chances for strategy to think about the fuel mileage today. And in turn, there's also lots of chances to get yourself involved in other drivers' mistakes. A lot to talk about when it comes to this circuit, to say the least.
It is one of the homes of endurance racing, but we're not doing one of our endurance rounds because this being rounds number 8 and 9 is one of our feature rounds. And so as we take a look at the calendar, we started off with Sebring for an endurance race in the end of July. Then it was VIR and Road America for the first quarter of the season. We're in the second portion of the season now. Silverstone last week was a good race out there in that endurance race. Then we've got 2 40-minute races, as I say, around here at Circuit de la Sarthe. Next week, we're heading over to Barcelona for 3 20-minute sprint races before we end the first half of the season. The second half of the season, well, we've got an endurance race at Daytona, another classic endurance track here on iRacing. Fuji Speedway then for the 8th week, with Red Bull Ring rounding out the third quarter of the season. And then the final stretch in Europe is Monza, Imola, and then Spa-Francorchamps to round out the championship on 30th of October. And speaking of the championship, well, let's take a look at the pro standings, because it is James Bume of Altitude Esports, who currently has a 76-point lead over Ross McFarlane for Pure Sims Esports. Jack Sedgwick of Inex Racing is 101 points back off of the championship leader, so he'll be looking for a good round in his Ferrari. Leif Sebastian in 4th ahead of Mark Fletcher. Alex Davidson, who had a great race last time out, he's in 6th ahead of Ethan Critchley. Morgan Butler, Marcin Rebicek and Matthew Victorino round out the top 10. In Pro-Am standings, it's the privateer of Dennis Grabowski, who's feeling a bit under the weather today. He's currently leading by 89 points over Adam Watson for Altitude Esports White. Daniel Sedgley for Olympus Esports Titan is just a further 6 points back from Adam in 3rd place. Michael Gray is in 4th ahead of Andy Archer, with Phil Samways, Ben Gregory, Chris Gooch, Jonathan Walker and Niels Bocage rounding out the top 10. Then in your AM Championship, 60 points separate Sophia Ridpather and her Olympus Esports Titan car over William Guthrie's Full Tilt V Autosport car. Adam Hedgecock in his Altitude Esports Blue car is 104 points off of the championship leader in 3rd place. Paddy Faulkner ahead of Paul Joseph Clist, get the teeth in, Paul. Jesse Payne Wilkins, Carol Pukalka, Andy Jones, Paul Crawford and Lars Van Rijn round out the top 10 of the AM. In the Pro Teams Championship, well, it is Altitude Esports, who currently have a 194-point lead over the Pure Sims Esports outfit. Freeham UK are in 3rd place ahead of Altitude Esports White, with Apex One with Simutek rounding out the top 5. In the AM Teams Championships, it's Olympus Esports Titan who currently lead that one by a big margin, in fact, 291 points over Fat Atom Racing, with Full Tilt V Motorsports in 3rd place ahead of the AI Race Summaries DCW Racing team. Full Tilt V Sim Sports are in 5th place ahead of Altitude Esports Blue, with Full Tilt V Autosport 7th place and Olympus Esports Atlas rounding out the 8 teams in AM. So we are coming to the end of qualifying. The last few drivers are getting their lap times in here. I think Jack Sedgwick is going to be the last one to cross the line. So we've got about 4 minutes, Justin. It certainly is going to be a challenge for those drivers. As you said, fuel mileage is going to help hold a key to winning these races.
Just 45% that fuel limit for today. That gets you maybe around the halfway point with some saving, so it's going to be very tight on that window compared to some of the action earlier on in the week that you may have seen here on RaceSpot, where some drivers had up to 50% of the fuel tanks. The BOP is actually going to be a major talking point here because Jack Sedgwick is one of the drivers in a Ferrari. It just so happens, Paul, the Ferraris have been very strong here this past week in official action, no matter what type of series. So at this point, Sedgwick might have that straight line advantage, although you still have to be able to beat the driver, not just the car type.
And of course, if you're the one forging the path at the front of the field, you've not got the advantage of the draft, whereas you maybe want to be sort of the second, third car in a queue to get yourself maximum fuel saving and to work that strategy in towards the midpoint of the race. Here comes Jack then in towards the Ford chicane for the last time in qualifying. He's going to launch over these curbs, left, right, onto the power and across the line. And what's his lap time going to be? It's going to be 3 minutes 51.11. That puts him up to 5th place on our starting grid.
That's been done in qualifying. Should be solid track position here. I believe that's just about all the cars already off the circuit. So just like that, 36 entries, but surprisingly only 30 put up qualifying times.
Yeah, so there have been a few issues for a few of our drivers. One of those being our AM Championship leader, Sophia Ridpath, has obviously had issues out there and has not taken a qualifying time. Leif Sebastian, Jesse Stevens, Matt Sheriff, Josh Boot, of course, has a penalty coming into this week for qualifying. In fact, I can tell you it's not just Josh Boot. Chris Stevenson, well, he's not here today. He was another one to get a penalty, and Tim Perry as well, who is not here today. So Josh Boot is the sole person to be serving a penalty so far. But in terms of this championship so far, we have seen that James Bume has had a real stranglehold in the pro standings. He's got 2 overall race wins so far in that Porsche 911 GT3R. It seems to be a really strong contender, does that Porsche, through the majority of the season, but this track, it's so different that it could have a real effect for him.
Yeah, this is one of the tracks where it doesn't really matter as much the manufacturer in that circumstance to have the quarter speed compared to, say, the straight line speed of the Ferrari. You can even argue with the BMW. The Porsche's been around the mid-pack in terms of the BOP entering the week. But that being said, the Porsche as a season whole has had the better balance, according to some drivers, and as seen across the racing landscape. It's going to be interesting how Bume does from the second row.
Well, let's take a look at your grid then, and it is former 4-time champion Ross McFarlane who's going to lead them off. On the front row alongside him is Alex Davidson in that Pure Sims Esports outfit. So BMW's on the front row of the grid, and then there's another BMW, Michael Rack, for Apex One with Simutech. 3rd place alongside him, championship leader in pro of James Bume. Jack Sedgwick and Matthias Lukczak round out row number 3. 4th row of the grid is Axel Slipčević and Mark Fletcher, the 2 teammates sharing that row, and then 2 more teammates sharing the next row. Row number 5, it's Ethan Critchley and Andy Archer, who's your top Pro-Am in qualifying in the Fat Atom Racing cars. Dennis Grabowski and Adam Watson round out row number 6. The 7th row of the grid is going to see Morgan Butler in his BMW, and then one of the sole Mercedes, just 2 Mercedes out there, and your top AM in qualifying, Karol Pakalka, in that Full Tilt V Sim Sports team, currently on the pole position for AM, 14th overall. Then it's Marcin Rabicek and William Guthrie, Daniel Sedgley and Phil Samways round out row number 9. 10th row of the grid is Arthur Turtle with Paul Webster alongside him. Adam Hedgecock and Richard Simner on row number 11, with Lars Van Rijn and Chris Gooch rounding out row number 12. 13th row of the grid for Ben Gregory and Nils Bocage, with Jesse Payne Wilkins and Paul Crawford on row number 14. Row 15, Patrick Faulkner and Nathan Healy. And then the final few rows, the drivers did not set lap times here. So Leif Sebastian and Jesse Stevens on row number 16, with row 17 being Sophia Ridpath and Matt Scherf. Number 18 then is going to be Josh Booth and Paul Joseph Clist. Well, Justin, the drivers are getting themselves prepared. They're going to be starting just before the Porsche curve. So we've got a little moment here. What are you expecting coming into this first race of the evening?
Well, when it comes to this first race, I'm expecting drivers to try and save fuel up towards the front. First of all, make sure they get to that pit window around the halfway point safely without having to extrude themselves, but also to save time in the pit lane. But the second part of that is, if your monster's not with great track position in the early going, it might get a little bit feisty, because it's pretty common here when you go up the Mulsanne straight and towards those chicanes and towards the Mulsanne corner, you lose a lot of time going back and forth in terms of passes by that chicane. So if you want to get the track position, you better be efficient and quick.
Yeah, you need to be really good on the power, on the brakes. These cars, they will be all trimmed out as much as possible in terms of their wing settings. They will want as much top speed as possible, because not only have you got the Mulsanne straight, you've got the run from Mulsanne corner through to Indianapolis, and then the run from Arnage to Porsche curves, and it is all about speed around here at Circuit de la Sarthe. Well, the drivers are going to be heading themselves towards the Ford chicane. They're under control of the iRacing pace car, which is the Porsche 911 pace car here today. We're getting set. 40 minutes of action here in the World GT Championship. One mandated pit stop. So you will be seeing those drivers head on over as the Tricolore comes flying over. We are getting set for the start of this motor race. Into and out of the Ford chicane. The green flag is in the air, and we're underway for round number 8 of the World GT Championship, and already there's been drama at the start. It's Will Guthrie, the driver who's second place in AM Championship standings, has had issues at the Ford chicane and is all the way down to stone dead last. So drivers continue through the Dunlop chicane, underneath the Dunlop bridge for the first time, and into the S's now. It is Ross McFarlane from Alex Davidson at the front of your field, and Michael Rack is following him, and that's Lars van Rijn. He's had issues, that's at the Dunlop chicane. So a couple of early issues for some of our drivers, but Justin, they're on to the Mulsanne straight for the first time. Now they can really stretch their legs.
Yeah, that's the nervous part on the start for today. Lots of chances for drivers to go off track and have bumper cars in the checkup effect. That's really allowed the top 6 or so to be able to check out of the early going here. Look at this fighting already starting to brew out. You have Leipzig trying to trying to hold on to the midst of all this. Jack Cedric already going on the fuel save, knowing the importance of the strap. They are just in the very edge of drafting distance. It's been around a second and 8/10 throughout the week.
I could tell you there are a couple of one driver with a penalty. Matt Scherf has got a black flag, so mustn't have served a slow-down penalty. And he is... speaking of having drama, Josh Boot now, the latest one to have issues, and Paul Crawford. My goodness, the drivers are struggling on this opening lap. We've got to remember... Oh, that's a Pure Sims car. That's Jesse Stevens in the Porsche, the sole Porsche in the Pure Sims Esports team. But it's the cold tyres, isn't it, Justin, that can have an effect in the early going?
Yeah, you're right on that, because there's good chance of drivers going and sliding on those cold tires. It takes about a lap at most at this track to grip up. And that's the problem. When you're under the brakes and you try and send it like you're on warmed up tires, you can miss the corner like half of these drivers have done, especially that last spinner did so after ramming somebody.
That was Jesse Stevens. Not Jesse Stevens. That was one of our drivers. It was the car of... I'm just trying to find the timing screen now. I've lost them. I had the name for him. Jesse Payne Wilkins, sorry, it was.
Yes.
We saw having the spin, heading towards Indianapolis now for the first time, onto the brakes. Use the camber of Indianapolis to help you around there. You can carry a bit more speed than you can imagine, but this corner here at Arnage, you've got to get the car slowed right down, second gear through the right-hander, and then get onto the loud pedal for your run to Porsche curves.
Yeah, right now, at this point, if you're McFarlane, try and back things up and clutch as the lead car, but not surprised to see Davidson being able to utilize his teammate for the save. It's been early on the push to try and charge ahead with how this race can play out. You want to have that better fuel mileage if you want to have a chance to fully on contend in this one. The BMW is looking strong, though. Top 3, all BMWs, 4 of the top 5.
We've got 2 drivers on pit road. Paul Crawford, who we saw off at the first of the Mulsanne straight chicanes, and Matt Sheriff, who had a black flag. He's actually taken a tour back to the pit lane, so he is having to get repairs done to his car. But we're at the end of the first lap. Remember, 40-minute race. Oh, now let's have a look. So there's a real big checkup. So that's what happened before they'd even reached the green flag. There was a huge checkup, and everyone just got into the back of each other.
Yeah, and that cost a lot of drivers upwards of 5 to 10 seconds because of that. But that can happen here at the Ford chicanes on those starts. That's why a lot of drivers went single file there. The problem is, it's like almost going up to a stop sign with how aggressive it is when they have that many cars lined up.
Ethan Critchley with a black flag, so he is on pit road right now. And hopefully for him it's a stop and hold, so obviously a corner cut or something like that, not serving a slowdown penalty, that could be one of the effects. And on the opening lap of a race here in iRacing around Le Mans, getting a slowdown penalty is one of the worst things, because the way that the slowdown system works for you to work out if you're cutting the corner is it takes an average sector time and then works out your slowdown from that. But if you're at the start of the race and you haven't got an average sector time, as Arthur Turtle goes around in his Altitude Esports white car, that's on the exit of Tech Rouge onto the Mulsanne straight, and he's trying his best to get himself turned around. But to finish off at 4, if you're not got an average sector time or a single sector time set, it just gives you a huge penalty, doesn't it, Justin?
Yeah, it comes to the point where you lose at least 4 or 5 seconds per time penalty at some parts of the racetrack. Especially in some cases, you argue too down the front straightaway where a driver may cut one of those Ford chicanes a little bit too hard on the inside. You see them have to nearly come to a full stop along the front straightaway, or else you miss the black flag. The Mulsanne straight is even worse because this is the fastest part of the racetrack. That loses you upwards of up to 10 positions just trying to navigate that. I can tell you at one time, at least 3 drivers having to serve them, including the 4th place car as one of his teammates crashed.
Axel Slijeptrovic around. So dramas, that's down the Mulsanne straight. That's in a straight line, is that? So big dramas for Axel Slijeptrovic. And that's dropped him down to 28th right now in this race. Still at the front, it's Ross McFarlane, Alex Davidson, Michael Rack together, and then a gap. Jack Sedgwick has moved ahead of Matthias Lupchak. So that's a gain of position for 4th place in his Ferrari. So Jack's trying to move forward. But these Pure Sims Esports drivers, you can tell that they are just working together right now, and they're just trying to pull away at the front.
Yeah, Bume, for reference, we talked about just time penalties moments ago. 1 second back to 5 seconds behind the main pack. That's how implication-filled it can be. But I will say, McFarlane and Davidson looking very strong. And this is one benefit to having a teammate to help you up at the front. You have the chance to work together, communicate. Okay, what's our fuel number looking like? What's the pace looking like? What's going on behind us? Oh, we lost somebody because of slowdown? Okay, we're a bit more comfortable now with the pressure. It adds that extra variable of being able to discuss what's going on with your teammate, and if need be, do we need to potentially have a swap draft here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're the leading car. If you're Ross McFarlane right now, you'll be there saying, okay, Alex, I've done my 2 laps. Can you move in front of me now and you do your 2 laps in front of me? But Ross McFarlane, in these types of races, when there's pit stops involved here in the World GT Championship, he really comes through to the fore. But another driver who does really well is his teammate in second place, Alex Davidson. He won the last round at Silverstone, so he knows what it takes to do some strategy plays. As we look further down your field right now, this is Marcin Rebicek in 14th place. He's got Paul Webster, Daniel Sedgley and Morgan Butler behind, so a 4-car cackle of cars for 12th place.
Well, just staying in the line, and some of these cars, mind you, are part of the check-up effect, like essentially, hence some of the damage to the back end of that machine. But if you're Munsey, the 373, in the midst of this, Rebicek trying to find a way ahead, because it's a chance to be able to find a way up to the next pro cars. It's a long way to them is the downside, because when it comes to class structure, the next pro car is in 7th on the racetrack. If you want any chance, you need 10 seconds. So already the advantage is lost just because of the starting position. That's why qualifying is so critical.
Down the Mulsanne straight. And, well, just moving over to the side there is Pakalka. Dennis Grabowski's going to move past in his Porsche 911 GT3R, the 992 car. And he goes through that chicane. Very, very wide. And then back on to the Mulsanne straight. Do you know, Justin, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but seeing as we are at Le Mans, it has become a tradition that I tell this stat, which is the Mulsanne Straight is the same length as Sebring International Raceway.
Well, 2 very different types of tracks there. In that span at Sebring, well, a lot happens. Let's put it that way. But I didn't really think about that.
But it tells you, though, just how long this track is. You know, it's 13.6 kilometers long is this track, 38 turns. It's a real challenge for these teams and these drivers to be able to get the speed and to get the fuel saving that they need. They're not going to save a lap, but saving fuel will mean a quicker pit stop.
Exactly, and that's the thing that has to be thought about a lot. You could save 2-3 seconds in the pits, and then no one else can break forward to you unless they get a lot of help. That's why I've been emphasizing so much working with the teammate, working on that strat, working on saving when you ride in the midst of the pack. Also important is a little bit more checkups there coming off the curbing.
Yeah, this is further down in your order, Leif Sebastian trying to work their way past, and in fact does get their way past Nathan Healy. Although I say that, the Ferrari now pulling up alongside and going, yeah, I don't think you will, mate. And that Ferrari has got some top speed on the straights into the corners and stays ahead. Well, the back end of that Ferrari just swung out a little bit as it went into this Indianapolis section, and look at Sebastian able to carry the speed through that left-hander at Indianapolis, then onto the right, and then back up to speed. We have had an issue for Ethan Critchley. He's back in the pit lane and he's out of the race. He's left the server. So Ethan Critchley, who he showed so much promise in the opening round at Sebring, getting pole position in his McLaren, he's having a tough time out there, and he's out of this opening race.
And Tough Break was running on his own in 33rd, I believe, at the time. But to emphasize in the midst of some of these packs here too, you could just see the differences of car type. The Ferrari, a lot of people like to run it in the officials because of straight line. Here's the McLaren for reference, and Critchley, and talking about the trouble spots up the Mulsanne.
He's just pulled over. Yeah.
Yeah. Simple as that, an error possible cut through, but either way, I was about to say, when it comes to the Porsche, you'll see it right through the roll of these corners, right here, for example. A lot more center speed, a lot more rotation, better on the downforce there. But the Ferrari is quicker once you get to the top end on these bigger tracks like this, where you see right now the Porsche is just trying to get to the draft, stay lined up, but the Ferrari's still quicker without the draft.
You know, we saw this last week as looking to the inside, Sebastian. Oh, that move wasn't really on there. You weren't close enough there, my friend. And I think it was flash of the headlights, terse flash of the headlights from him, as he's got another Porsche right behind him as well with Balkaj. And, well...
There goes Healy.
That's one way of getting past, I suppose.
There was no contact.
No.
Just... Well, the car decided it didn't want to defend anymore. What can I say?
And this goes back to the whole thing of drivers. He's just lost it coming into the second part of the S's there. Not a lot that the driver can do about that, to be honest, but it goes back to that comment that I made. The drivers have all really trimmed out these cars for top speed, and it's when you get to those corners through the S's at the start of the lap, Porsche curves towards the end of the lap, that's where you're really on edge.
Yeah, it's been showcased a lot across the track. Some of the altitude machines, especially, have been really sliding. Take, for example, Arthur Turtle. Just a reminder, the CDC now says do not hug or kiss a turtle. There goes Turtle into the wall. That was just after a teammate, the next car up, got massively loose, Paul. So some of these drivers are absolutely swinging loose in the corners.
Certainly. It's almost as if you want to just think about preservation for the race. Have just that extra click of wing. Yeah, you won't be absolute VMAX down the straights, but it'll just give you that little bit of preservation through the corners that you do need in a race like this. James Bume and Jack Sedgwick currently 5th and 6th places, currently duking it out for the gravel corner exit of Indianapolis into Arnage. But yeah, it's almost as if you want to just give that, but you don't want to give any single kilometre an hour, do you? You want to be as fast as possible down these straights.
Yeah, because the faster you go down the straights, the better chance you have of to rather overtake someone down said straightaways. If you don't have that overtake speed, well, someone likely has that overtake speed built in with the trimmed out to be able to zip on by down the straightaways. At the sacrifice the corners, as there goes Sedgwick into the wall.
Yeah, that was a glancing blow. I can tell you that I was doing that this morning in my Mercedes AMG GT4 in practice for the next round of the World Sim Racing World Sports Car Championship in a few weeks' time. So, yeah, I know that feeling, but it was a glancing blow. It shouldn't be too damaged. Maybe just take some of the paintwork off that Ferrari, but should be okay to keep going.
I was about to say, with how the damage model plays out with some of these cars, initially it showcased the damage hard to the side, but fling back. So I think Sedgwick got massively lucky, Paul, that the damage fling back out and kept it as a glance instead of an absolute sledgehammer to the side.
Daniel Sedgley has decided that now's the time to actually pit and to get the fuel stop out of the way early on rather than waiting until the final 10 minutes or so of this race. So intriguing to see how that pans out. Now the question is, if he comes out in clean air, he's not going to have a draft to help him out. He's not going to be able to do any fuel saving in the second part of the stint, and he could potentially be losing out here by pitting early.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure on the timing here. I still want to at least get to halfway, be comfortable in that regard, because if you aren't getting to the halfway mark, you're absolutely at risk of going on a two-stop. And if you go for a two-stop, it's a 46-second stop.
Don't forget, it is only a 40-minute race, and with a 45% fuel tank, I mean, 50% takes you to half an hour, usually say, in these cars. So,
give or take.
Yeah, so 45%, you're talking about 25 minutes.
I still don't like that.
It's tight, yeah. Especially if you're running around on your own.
Yeah, I still want to get the least amount of fuel in that I would have to need to get to the end, rather, because that's the pit stop delta that we've talked about. That could be a difference of 6 seconds in the pit lane. That might be a difference between being in a pack like this and being 3 seconds ahead of said pack, where they get within maybe a second and a half by the checker flag.
Well, Jesse Payne Wilkins was another one who pitted as well on that lap. So that's pit stops for both of those two. Leaders are still clear out at the front as we get in towards the halfway point of this race. We're currently looking at Andy Archer, Adam Watson and Mark Fletcher. They are 7th, 8th and 9th right now together on track. Now, Watson and Fletcher, those two have been running around close together in a few rounds of this championship, and team boss Mark Fletcher obviously wanting to keep an eye on his rather exuberant teammate of Adam Watson.
Yeah. For Watson so far, it's been doing well in terms of this draft to be able to keep things up, keep things battling along in the midst of this fight. But again, it's been a massive advantage in terms of the track position for a lot of these drivers because they were ahead of all that checking up for a majority of the other competitors in Pro-Am, which really got them on the upper hand by at least 4 or 5 seconds. The one you can argue even bigger in terms of the track position, the checkup's coming big still. You can still argue Patalka, rather in the 69, who's still in the top 12 overall and still has track position in the AM class.
We've got a car stopped out on track. I can see on my track map. It's Paul Webster in the 888. So my track map just flashed up yellow to help me identify. And here's what happened. So Webster lets the car in front, and it's almost like he put the handbrake on there, and around it goes. It must have. I wonder if it was on a downshift and it just locked the rears.
Almost look like a combination of that and being with the left sides and the curbs. Sometimes you can spin it around with the rev down, even with the engine brake, so.
Oh, now you see leaders, McFarlane and Davidson are on to pit road. They've decided that now's the time to pull the trigger on the pit stop. Matthias Lutchak is on to pit road as well. Michael Rack, James Bume, Jack Sedgwick are all staying out there, as is Adam Watson. Andy Archer and Mark Fletcher on pit road. Carol Pakolka is on pit road. We're getting a veritable pit party now, Justin. This is interesting to see how this all pans out with the leaders coming in at the halfway point of the race.
Well, this simplifies the strategy a little bit, makes it about a 12-13 lap race estimate. There looks like they may be playing on that guess here, but for the most part, looking to be about the full tank. A lot longer times, actually, compared to a couple of the drivers earlier. 16, 17 seconds on the average.
As they leave the pit road, then it is still McFarlane ahead of Davidson with Lutchak in what is effectively third place, although a little bit back. I did notice that Lutchak had pulled back from those two leaders, so I wonder if he'd had a slowdown penalty or something that just lost him a bit of time to McFarlane and to Davidson as well. The drivers yet to pit then: Michael Rack, James Bume, Jack Sedgwick, Adam Watson, Dennis Grabowski, Marcin Rabicek, and also Leif Sebastian and Ben Gregory. They all owe us a pit stop. So those pit stops are right on 5 laps for those drivers who have pitted on that lap. Whereas those, 8 drivers that have yet to pit, they're going that extra lap.
Yeah, that's where having the advantage of fuel saving come into play, right? And that's what's kind of really helped a lot of these drivers, having that chance to be able to save a little bit more. The one I'm looking to potentially in terms of that regard for the time might be the 333 or even some of the drivers like the 555. Chris Gooch and Payne Wilkins. They had quicker stops of 9 seconds and 15 seconds respectively. You get to that mark, that can gain you a decent amount of time at least in your position battles. Not sure if it's going to be enough. And where did the 28 go?
Yeah, where else the 28 go?
There he is.
Back. It's a bit of connection problems. Oh, a bit of a heart-in-mouth moment for us in the commentary box there. I will just say, Chris Gooch did pit 4.5 laps ago, so we'll need to make another pit stop to make it to the end. Obviously had issues on lap number 1 of this race. So, it's all about strategy as this race. It's all about getting to the end of the race as quickly as possible, but while saving as much fuel as possible. It's a really different dynamic to our sprint races, which we'll be seeing next week, which will be at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. So different races next week, but right now these drivers, they're just hoping that they've saved enough fuel right now to be able to get to pit road without spluttering away.
Yeah, exactly. And what can you say? There's no time for having problems like that right now. You do not want to have that at a track like this, because when it happens, you lose the draft effect, and that can help not be a big factor, or can be a big factor in some cases. For the most part, though, expecting everyone to come in. Here they go.
On to pit road then. The rest. Oh, big moment. Well saved there, Jack Sedgwick. Oh, that's a tip of the hat on that save. My goodness. I bet Hugo Luis, our producer right now, is furiously trying to get a replay of that one, because that, from the cockpit, I bet that was suddenly a Code Brown moment.
Sedgwick is absolutely lucky he didn't snap that car around with that clip of the grass to the right, because if it wasn't for the hand and that experience, Purple Hedgehog would be absolutely flying into the car in front. How in the world did he make it?
Well, I mean, you said it right there. Experience. He's driven this car. He has basically been in this Ferrari all the time that he's been in the World GT Championship these last few seasons. So, yeah, it is a car that he's comfortable with. As they come out of pit road, your leading cars that were at the front when they pitted have come through. Now, does Michael Rapp get out ahead of Matthias Luchak? I think he does, you know. And so that's going to be a change of position through the pit stops for Rack ahead of Luchak. McFarlane and Davidson still first and second place. Michael Rack then in third place. In fact, no, that won't be a change of position, because Rack was there before the pit stops. He dropped back, remember. Matthias Luchak in fourth place, James Bume and Jack Sedgwick. Adam Watson's gained 5 places in this race so far. He's up to 7th place, and he's the top Pro-Am driver. But right behind him is one of his rivals in Andy Archer in 8th place. Denis Grabowski, the Pro-Am Championship leader, 9th place overall for him. So even though Adam Watson's in 7th and is getting some good points, he's not getting that big advantage that he would like over the others. Karol Pakalka is your leading AM, now up to 11th place, having gained 3 places in that Mercedes AMG GT3. The next best AM is Sophia Ridpath. Remember, Sophia did not set a qualifying time. Gained 17 places, up to 16th in this race. A great race from Sophia, and Josh Booth in 22nd is the 3rd placed AM driver.
What can I say again? Track position critical, qualifying critical. That track position, Coca's absolutely been thriving from it as a result of that qualifying performance. I think as long as Bukanka doesn't get any slowdowns, that 69 is in a great spot to be able to keep things going, although things getting a little bit dicey with some of the pros and Pro-Am drivers wanting to go, although they are letting the cars go, that half speed.
Yeah, that was Morgan Butler getting ahead for 3M UK team. Of course, 3M, one of the sponsors of the World GT Championship. Make sure you check out their products. Also check out Simutech as well. They came on board as a sponsor last season, and well, they've stayed around, so it's great to see the extra exposure that company's been getting, and great to have them on board sponsoring the series. It's Paul Smith and Justin Prince here on commentary for this round number 8 and 9 of the World GT Championship here from Circuit de la Sarthe. We're into the final 13 minutes of the opening race of the evening. We have one more race coming up for you after this one, and what's more, the grid is decided by the spin of a wheel, so we will get to see. We don't know who the grid is until Hugo, our producer, spins that wheel and decides what position gets the reverse grid pole position. So certainly these drivers will be quickly switching on the broadcast just to see where's Paul.
Yeah, you better see where this is going to end up going, because, again, that can play things differently on your track position, where you may be saying, oh, great, I struggled first in that first race. I now get to start on the pole. There was a great analogy when I asked about that with heat racing, where you go at the short track level, for example, in Canada, you go in some cases from the slowest cars to the fastest cars in terms of how they organize the heats, where the slowest cars start the field. Well, it's a very eye-opening experience, let me tell you, when you have that where you have to then fight anyone else with speed right behind you, wanting all their spots and wanting them now, 3-4 wide. Imagine that here.
Well, we did see that on lap number 1, didn't we? So we get a bit of that in the World GT Championship. I'll tell you what, I know I'm going back to Tuesday last week, the World Sports Car Championship here we showed on RaceSpotTV. I think we had something like 6 wide going into turn 1 at Sebring with the LMP3s that race. That was it was absolutely crazy, was that? But I wouldn't know anything about that. I was sat back with the GT4s.
Let me guess.
Big moment. That's Morgan Butler coming out of the S's. Big moment. And that's going to put him at risk now from behind of Daniel Sedgley.
And already getting very defensive there. Good job by Butler to hold on, but wow, just absolutely ditching the Mercedes AMG from full tilt.
That BMW does have some pull down the straights, I can tell you. We saw that in effect last week in the endurance race when James Bume lost the lead from Alex Davidson. He tried all that he could to stay in the draft, stay in the slipstream of Alex Davidson, but that BMW down the straights has just got that edge over the Porsches. And well, that Mercedes, we always think of that Mercedes having quite a bit of grunts, quite a bit of pull, but it just can't seem to compete with those twin-turbo BMWs.
Especially when they tandem draft like we just seen right there, utilize the bump saying, okay, let's double the horsepower, in theory. But for the most part, I think Pucalka at this point is just thinking the big picture. Try and see where the AM competitors are. Stay in front. It's still 13 seconds until the next AM car back. As long as Pucalka doesn't have a slow up, I don't think there's a chance Redpath gets there with how far back it is.
I mean, Pucalka's 311 points behind at this stage in terms of the championship, but that's because they didn't actually come into the championship until Road America. So rounds number 4, 5 and 6, Pucalka took part, and in fact actually took an AM win at Road America as well in that Mercedes. So Carroll's really come in as a bit of a dark horse in terms of pace. Oh, getting close to side draft there, down towards Indianapolis, but going to have to fall in line once again into that line astern.
Yeah, see, just following the groove, just following the cautiousness, just let the draft pull them forward at this rate. Nothing else that can be really done. If they try and make the pass back, it's going to be immediately moved on back by, as we already just seen indicated. Now the BMWs are trying to work together here to break away here. But all this is with about 3 estimated laps to go. Still lots of time to be able to hold on here, but more so lots of time for mistakes to pop up.
Yeah, that is a key thing, is mistakes can happen, and mistakes can happen when you least expect them as well. Across the line then, and as Justin says, the leader's got about 3 laps remaining in this race. Now, they came in with 5 laps done on their pit stops at the start of the 6th lap. In my counting, they will need to do a 6th lap, will the leaders, right now, whereas Michael Rack only needs to do 5 laps in this stint. So again, it's where that fuel saving and strategy comes into play.
Yeah, but the thing is, the difference between McFarlane and Davidson compared to Rack is Rack has fallen all the way back to the next pack. Hasn't had any draft help this entire run. McFarlane and Davidson have been doing exactly what we just seen for a pass amongst the top 15. Tandem draft, work together, pull away from the rest of the pack, make it just a race amongst yourselves. Then we'll see if we can battle it out on the final lap if they choose to. So for the most part, it's going exactly how Pure Sims has planned this out. Run away early, let no one else see you, make it to the checker flag.
Ash Sutton, the boss of Pure Sims, he'll be delighted to see his two drivers at the front of the field. And you mentioned it, Michael Rack has fallen back because Matthias Lukchak and James Bume, the Pro Championship leader, are right together as there's a change of position in Pro-Am. Dennis Grabowski has moved ahead of Andy Archer now. It's a change of position in Pro-Am. But you could see on that previous shot when we were looking at McFarlane and Davidson how Rack has really fallen back to Lukchak and Bume. Now, the thing that works in Rack's favour is Lukchak is a teammate.
Yeah, now it's a chance for them to at least work together to get third and fourth secured over Bume. Gain some points there. Here's the Altitude Esports machine for reference. Still a little bit further back, but at this point, you have to think they're at least talking, making sure, okay, I'm almost back up to you. Let's sort things together, see if we can break away from the 28, clinch at least a top 5 run inside the top 4, rather, and then break away. There's the speed difference starting to pull away right there. You see the little bit off the corner? That's them starting to get a little bit closer up to be able to try and break away. Bume with the draft, going to not be as easy, but it's still not going to be easy when you have two drivers working together in sync to be able to pass by one, let alone both of them.
I think this is very much a race where the Porsche drivers throughout the grid, and there is a number of them here on the grid, I think it's one of those races where they just need to have a plan coming into this round and say, right, it's just about, is that a slow down penalty? I think it was, it is. Slow down penalty for James Bume, and that has cost him huge because he'll drop off the slipstream of the two cars in front. That's what was keeping him close together, and it's one little mistake, Justin. Just one little mistake, and it costs him.
Exactly, and that's what they've been waiting for. That one bobble again. He had one of the last run. He just had one right there. In turn, give Rack, along with his teammate Lukchak, a chance to be able to break away. Now it's going to be for Bume very difficult for them to close back up unless they hold on to the very tail end of the draft in the next half a lap. They might just have held on, James has, but it's going to take a full lap just to get back to them. You can already tell with the curbing right now, in particular, the BMW just seems to be a bit more comfortable. But that draft is just what helps Bume with how things have gone out in these final stages. Estimated 2 laps to go here around the racetrack. We mentioned about some of the conversations in the battles, say, of Pro-Am. Adam Watson currently 4 seconds ahead of Grabowski. That pit stop cycle, but also the speed picked up with the draft, allowing the 291 to break away and not be easily caught. This was exactly what we talked about if you get the right play-in on the strategy. Andy Archer had dominated much of the first half of this race, but just getting the timing of 1 lap difference even. Just enough to break away for the Fat Adam racing car. For reference, he's working with Mark Fletcher in his draft. Also has Dennis Grabowski, who has just about broken the toe, in fact, with how quick the pace has been from that 47 machine in the later stages. 3:51.8. Adam Watson still a second, about a half a second rather, the difference on pace. Not close enough for Grabowski to get within draft for the final lap, likely.
Yeah, and apologies everyone, having a few issues there, but it does seem to be resolving itself now. So, so with 2 minutes 46 remaining in this race, then it is this opening race of the evening, and you've been makes some very good points about how this is all working for those drivers out there today. Biggest mover in the field is Sophia Ridpath, up to 15th now in this race. And so that means a gain of 18 places so far in this one. And that's going to put her in a really good spot to potentially get a reverse grid draw. Because I do believe, if my maths is correct, we do get... That's basically going to guarantee... no, it's not. 12th place would absolutely guarantee you a reverse grid draw. But at this moment, 15th could just fall out of that reverse grid draw depending on how it goes. But Sophia doing a sterling job in that Olympus Esports outfit car. 4.5 laps on her stint, so she was one of those drivers who pitted early just in the race and didn't get that one extra lap. Yeah,
but the thing has been for Ridpath, just taking advantage of some of the mistakes, but also been able to leapfrog pack to pack. Paul Webster, especially last time we mentioned, for example. But Bukalka, you could argue, has been doing the same thing, with the advantage still being about 15 seconds. Bukalka, with that advantage in AM, just been able to stay with a Pro and a Pro-Am car and make it near impossible for Ridpath to get up there, with how the 69's been able to get some draft off multiple different front contenders after qualifying so well.
So we're into the final minute of the race. The leaders are heading through towards the Ford chicane. They will be shown the white flag by Barney the flagman, and then it'll be one more lap to go for them. I'm interested to see how they've been going on. I mean, their lap times, they've been doing some good lap times so far. This last lap, they've just set a 3-minute 50.8 and a 3-minute 50.7. Michael Rack, for instance, on his own, 3-minute 50.8, so he's keeping with the pace of the leaders, is Michael, but he's got that big gap of nearly 7 seconds between him and your race leader, as Daniel Sedgley has had to make a trip down to pit road, so has not been able to make it on fuel this time.
Yeah, so again, coming to 6 to go, or 6 laps into a stint rather, seems to be enough, especially more so coming to 5. But if you have to go 7, doesn't seem to be that mark, and I think a few drivers, at least a couple, might already have taken that note of this rate. Here's the true test. Does Davidson take a chance to make a move here? McFarlane's already going up the middle of the road, trying to get the back speed.
And there's that bump draft. It's NASCAR-style racing, is this, with GT3 cars. You know, these cars, they're the best part of $1 million, are these things. So, you know, just casually just bump drafting 2 BMW M4 GT3s down the Mulsanne Straight. There is never any team orders in this team, though, with Pure Sims. They are allowed to race. The one rule they do have is one rule that you have for all teammates is don't hit your teammate off. And so far, they've been working together perfectly at that front with that, as I say, 7 and a bit second lead over Michael Rack.
Yeah, eventually you'd have to think Davidson, if he wants this win, has to make this move soon, whether in the next quarter or more so in Indianapolis. Might be thinking about if there's going to be enough time to defend in turn. But remember, McFarlane's still one of the best championship contention. Davidson's still in the top 10 of the points. That is something that comes up to a factor, but McFarlane, either way, first or second, lots of points to be had, to be picked up on Bromley in turn after 76 points back entering the day.
Patrick Faulkner and William Guthrie have also had to head on to pit road, so they've not been able to finish in terms of their fuel. But here we go then. Alex Davidson, what's he going to do? Is he going to stick behind? Well, Ross McFarlane's going defensive here in towards Indianapolis, so I think that tells you all you need to know. Davidson round the outside into the inside of Indy. They're still side by side, the two Pure Sims drivers. This is sensational stuff between you two leaders into Arnage. McFarlane's got the inside, but Davidson can get the run out of the corner on the outside, and it's Davidson who takes the lead in towards Porsche curves.
Had to wonder when that move was coming. Mentioned Indianapolis being the best chance. We just seen that. However, McFarlane does have one more chance after the 4 chicanes. If you're brave, or you're brave enough to try and peek the mistake through the Porsche curbs.
Yeah, it's not really an opportunity there into the Porsche curves, but you've got to get the run out of the Porsche curves. Carry the speed through the exit here, and then that's going to then give you that opportunity to avoid chicane. But the problem is, Ross McFarlane's following his teammate who's creating dirty air through those curves. That's going to just drop him back that little bit, and I don't think McFarlane's close enough. He's not. So it's going to be 2 wins in 2 weeks for Alex Davidson for Pure Sims Esports. It's a 1-2 for the team, but Davidson gets one over his teammate and takes victory here in round number 8 of the World GT Championship. Michael Rack has just pulled over to allow Matthias Lutchak to move into 3rd place in this race. The 2 teammates doing a swap at the end here. Here comes Jack Sedgwick with James Bume right behind. Bume can't get past. That's going to be Sedgwick in 6th place. In 5th place, is it? No, it's 6th place because it was Watson, your Pro-Am winner, who finishes in 7th behind Sedgwick. Grabowski in 8th place overall, so it's an Pro-Am win for him and an Am win for Karol Pukalka. 2nd Am win here for Pukalka in this championship. What a debut to this series to get on board. But Justin, we wondered if we were going to get that towards the end, and that's exactly what we got from Alex Davidson.
Yes, indeed. Waited for the best opportunity on the final lap to make the move. McFarlane had a great chance to bounce back through Ornage because of the switchback, but Davidson just had that better pace for the late stages with that dirty air factor you talked about to be able to run away there, but well executed by Pure Sims to start the day.
Yeah, perfect work from Pure Sims Esports. The last few cars now are going to be coming through, and because of the nature of the circuit, we're going to be waiting a little while for drivers to be finishing here. And so as they come through, this is one of our drivers further down in that Olympus Esports outfit and into the chicane for the 92. That's Paul Clist. Final 2 corners in the Ford chicane, out of the chicane, and will come across the line. Will Clist just ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins, Adam Hedgecock, Arthur Turtle, Patrick Faulkner, Nathan Healy and William Guthrie, Paul Crawford, all yet to finish this race. But what we will do in the meantime here is get ourselves the draw for the grid for race number 2 of the evening. Of course, 2 races here in the World GT Championship on a feature round, and it's going to be a big one here. 25. That is the 3rd largest grid reverse that we can have here in this championship. My goodness, there's going to be a couple of drivers happy about that one, and a couple of pros won't be happy about that. But let's take you through then your race results here, your provisional race results here in the World GT Championship. Pure Sims Esports 1-2 for Alex Davidson and Ross McFarlane. A pretty much perfect race for those two. They started at the front and they finished at the front for those two. Apex 1 was Simutech, then 3rd and 4th place with a late change of positions at the line. Matthias Lutchak getting that over his teammate of Michael Rack, who gifted him that place. James Bume for Altitude Esports, your Pro Championship leader, 5th place for him, ahead of Jack Sedgwick for Inex Racing. Adam Watson for the Altitude Esports White team. He is the best Pro-Am here in this opening race, finishing in 7th place overall, ahead of Championship leader Dennis Grabowski. So he does gain some points back off of Dennis, but not that many. Mark Fletcher and Morgan Butler round out your top 10. 11th place for Karol Pukalka, who is the best of the AMs here for Full Tilt v Sim Sports, rounding out in 11th place. Fat Atom Racing's Andy Archer finishes 12th and 3rd place in Pro-Am, ahead of Marcin Rebicek. And then Sophia Ridpath, 2nd place in AM for Olympus Esports. Good result for her after starting at the back of the grid. Paul Webster, Leif Sebastian, Richard Simner, Daniel Sedgley, Niels Bocage, and Ben Gregory round out the top 20. 21st for Josh Boot for Fat Atom Racing, finishing 3rd place in AM, ahead of Phil Samways. Axel Sliptrovic, who had issues out there. Pretty much everyone now listed has had issues in this race. Jesse Stevens, Lars van Rijn, Chris Gooch, Paul Clist, Jesse Payne Wilkins, Adam Hedgecock, and Arthur Turtle rounds out the top 30. With the final few drivers coming across the line, it's Patrick Faulkner, William Guthrie, Nathan Healy, Paul Crawford, the last of your finishers, Matt Sheriff, and Ethan Critchley do not finish the race. So that is the opening race of the evening, but stick around because we have got another race coming up, and 25 places reversed means that that's going to be Lars van Rijn and Jesse Stevens sharing the front row, an AM and a Pro Justin starting on the front row of race number 2.
Yeah, that's going to be wild, to say the very least, what we're going to have happen here, but more so, great chance for drivers like Jesse Stevens to bounce back after the early mistakes in the last race. And others, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to cut to the field cleanly, because you're talking about having to scatter quickly and make passes quickly. That's not so easy here, because if you try and make too many passes quickly, you lose 2 seconds going side by side, and then you lose the draft.
Yeah, and with the slipstream being so important around this track, not just in terms of keeping your speed, but also your fuel saving here, that's going to be a key thing for a few of these drivers and a few of these teams. But let's touch on Pure Sims Esports then. Alex Davidson, Ross McFarlane, first and second place, were able to pull away from the rest of the field. Great teamwork for 10 of the 11 laps. So that final lap, Justin, they were giving it each other.
Well, that's kind of the teammate way, right? Make it a 2-horse race, make it a 2-teammate race, rather, in this case. And in turn, settle it amongst yourselves. Don't let anyone else factor in on breaking that pattern, and then you can battle it out. That's exactly what just happened with that race. I was talking about that earlier on in the action, actually, with how it looked to be the play once they were able to get the draft together in Tango. Now, the matter of when you decide to battle is team to team or driver to driver basis. At that point, Davidson knew that McFarlane was going to get the points regardless, but also wants the win, right? So, easily done. Through Indianapolis, nicely done on the draft, because you do that too early, like up the Mulsanne Straits, then guess what? There's a chance for the pass back from McFarlane to do the same to you.
Yeah, certainly. It's all about timing it right and making sure it's correct in your moves in that one. Well, we are going to step aside for just a few moments here while we hear from our sponsors in the series, but do stick around, because round number 9 of the World GT Championship Season 14 is coming up after this. Welcome back to coverage of the World GT Championship here on RaceSpotTV. It's season 14 of the World GT Championship. Paul Smith and Justin Prince behind the scenes here with Hugo Luis on the production buttons, giving you all the pictures that you see. And well, what we see is 6 minutes of practice for these drivers remaining before they get themselves set for the final race of the evening. Another 40-minute race, but now they're going to be racing into the evening. Justin, what sort of differences will that have for the drivers?
Well, it's the same type of racetrack for one, but it's more so going to be the air temperatures. How will that factor in once the drivers get rolling in with the evening conditions in terms of how those tires will build up, but also how the track may cool off as the racing conditions progress through the course of 40 minutes. Also, in turn, you have to factor in there's that invert that's going to very much affect the strategies, since, it's not going to be as easy to have a strategy set in stone when you don't have track position to start that execution for the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly going to be intriguing to see how those drivers... Now, Alex Davidson and Ross McFarlane, very experienced in moving the way through fields in reverse grid races, but I think you were absolutely right before the break, Justin. It's a different type of track, is this. You can't just, like at most tracks, just dive down the inside of people because you're multiple seconds quicker, better on brakes, better on corner exit around a track like that, like last week at Silverstone. Here this week, Le Mans, long straights. The field usually gets spread out as well, doesn't it? And you usually break up into little battle packs, don't you? So it's going to be difficult for those drivers coming through from 24th, 25th.
And you have to factor into, you mentioned the evening start already, but the in-sim time, I think, is very prevalent. It's already past 9:30 in-sim. You're talking about potentially going into full darkness or these closing stages of this race tonight. So in our words, lots to navigate that way, but also it's going to really truly test, are you comfortable with the dark? Or more so, your marks on the brakes and your marks in the pack in the dark when you don't have too much light to guide you compared to the full sunlight.
Yeah, braking, but you make, again, very good point that you make there. You've got different braking references here in the dark compared to in full daylight. So the driver's going to have to adjust how they race around here. Cooler temperatures as well, just 21 degrees Celsius on the track for those drivers out there. So it's cooler temperatures as well. But this track's never really been one about punishing the tyres, has it really? You've got those long stretches where the tyres can naturally just cool down before you reach those braking zones. Yeah,
but it's more so just the tire temps on the opening lap. We've seen at least 4 or 5 drivers go off, remember, in the first race. We might see that, if not a little bit more, in the second race, just because of the nature of the track. And wouldn't be surprised if drivers try and play it a little bit more cautious in turn to make sure they don't slide off the circuit because of those risk of time penalties, but more so the damage build up around this racetrack from the contact. A lot of the drivers involved in those opening lap incidents, mind you, some of them really struggled, we've seen, Paul, once they got into the later stages because of that damage to their bumpers really affecting the aerodynamics.
Yep, certainly did, and it cost them in terms of having to pit early as well in some cases, and then having to take a splash and dash at the end. Let's look at the positives though. With it being such a big reverse grid, we've got Lars Van Rijn is going to be starting on pole position, an AM driver, and Jesse Stevens, who we saw having some trials and tribulations out there on track in race number 1, gives Jesse a great opportunity of a potential race win here.
Chance for a good recovery, absolutely, for the first race. But it's going to be more so, in my opinion, those who were, amongst those, say, who lost touch a little bit early because the checkups from the mid-pack especially, that I'm curious about how things could play out tonight in this second race. Curious than, say, a Morgan Butler, because he's going to be one of the first of the Pure Sims cars now amongst the grid with the inversion in the BMW class, or BMW car type. Other drivers slip back in the late stages, curious about. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out, though, because, again, every race can be different, as some will argue. But in this case, This race could be very busy up the Mulsanne straights tonight for those opening first few couple laps.
It's going to be a great one. It's going to be sit back, relax and enjoy that one. A couple of drivers in the virtual paddock have been noting after that opening race. Ethan Critchley and Jesse Stevens, James Bume, all hating the slowdowns. All hating the slowdowns around here. It is a real challenge. In fact, James Bume even said he was about 1 second away from actually getting a black flag for not serving a slowdown in time. So it goes to show how quickly and easily it is to pick up those penalties.
That's almost like saying don't hate the player, hate the game kind of thing. But you're the one who cut the corner in the first place, and we know, and they know how harsh it can be because those sector times we talked about. They know how much time you have to bleed because of that on the opening lap. Put it simple. Just know your track limits. Don't try and cut the corner for every single second possible, because guess what? If you cut the corner too much, your price could be 30 seconds or 40 seconds in a pit lane.
I mean, you are talking to the person who is the strict advocate for strict track limits. So you're preaching to the choir here, Justin. That is for sure. But we are getting set for the second race of the evening. There you see those track conditions, and then we're going to get ourselves our starting grid in just a few moments' time. But Lars van Rijn is going to be the one starting from pole position on that front row of the grid. Alongside him, it's going to be Jesse Stevens, second place on the grid for Pure Sims Esports. So it's Altitude Esports Blue, Pure Sims Esports front row, with Altitude Esports Axel Sliptrovic. Could be a good shout in this race. Third place alongside him, Phil Samways, with Josh Boot and Ben Gregory rounding out row number 3. Row 4 for Niels Bocage and Daniel Sedgley, with Richard Simner and Leif Sebastian on row number 5. Row 6, Paul Webster and Sophia Ridpath. 7th row of the grid is shared by Martin Rebicek and Andy Archer, Carol Pakalka and Morgan Butler on row number 8, with the 9th row, Mark Fletcher and Dennis Grabowski. Row number 10 is Adam Watson and Jack Sedgwick, with the 11th row shared by James Bume and Michael Rack, Matthias Lukchak and Ross McFarlane on row number 12, with Alex Davidson, your race winner from the first race of the evening, on row number 13, shared with Chris Gooch. Everybody else starting where they finished: Paul Clist, Jesse Payne-Wilkins, Adam Hedgecock and Arthur Turtle rounds out row number 15. 16th row of the grid is Paddy Faulkner with Nathan Healy. Row number 17, William Guthrie and Paul Crawford. And Ethan Critchley starts all the way at the back of the field. We have lost one driver of Matt Sheriff. He has not returned for this second race of the evening. We are getting ourselves set for the start here, Justin. You've mentioned it. Opening couple of laps is going to be key around here. But then it's getting yourself settled into a rhythm for those near the front. Those starting in the mid-pack who have got that reverse grid, it's going to be really, really tough for them today.
Excessively difficult, I think, once you get into the talking of things. It looks like one driver may have not entered from the previous race, so 25 cars at part of that invert total. Yes, indeed, 25 rather. But regardless, it's going to be so critical to be able to cut your way through this respective pack quickly and efficiently. And already, here's a difference between the start procedure for the start of the race of race 1 and now. It looks like the leaders want to go double file and not single file with how they're staggering here.
Yeah, so we saw that in race 1 that the leaders were going single file. We did get that bit of a check-up though, remember, because of that. So hopefully we don't get that happening here in this race. But we are under the control of Lars van Rijn. Van Rijn's got to set the start for this one. And even at this time of the evening, we do get the flyby of the French Air Force and the tricolour in the sky. That blue, white and red for France going overhead. But Lars van Rijn, they've gone single file now. and it's going to be a green flag in the air. We're underway for round number 9 of the World GT Championship. Van Rijn straight away on the inside line, not wanting to give the slipstream to Jesse Stevens. Into turn number 1 they go. Through that sweeping right-hander onto the brakes for the Dunlop chicane. And we're going 2x2 a little bit further back. And so, there was a car spin. There was a car spin out of the Dunlop chicane. It's Josh Boot again on lap number 1. He had no luck on lap number 1 in race number 1. Race number 2 is facing the wrong way once again and has to wait until the entire field goes through. Jesse Stevens and Axel Slijeptrovic have moved ahead of Lars Van Rijn. So Van Rijn's lost 2 places on the opening of this lap. As we go through onto the Mulsanne straight for the first time here, Justin, and they get themselves all sorted out.
Yep, very clean compared to the first one. Give it a couple chicanes, though. But at this point, drivers like Barkaj trying to push quickly with the draft, already taking advantage of some of the runs. Others among some of those pros have not been able to make up any track position because the brick wall of race cars going side by side across the pack.
There's even a little bit of a gap as well. I wonder if that's where you had Josh Boot's spin. It's just caused a little bit of a break in the mid-pack towards the just outside the top 25 actually. So the McFarlane and Davidson might have got lucky with that. They've only gained 1 spot each in this race as we go down towards the second chicane right now. Onto the brakes for Stevens and Slijeptrovic. Phil Samways has moved ahead of Van Rijn now, so your pole sitters down to 4th place. Daniel Sedgwick's trying to make some moves forward, and that's Jack Sedgwick. Sedgwick is around. The Inex Racing Ferrari is facing the wrong way at the second chicane.
I think that was Racco around. He also was around, it looks like, there, but for the lead, taking another peek. Stevens still can't get his way around up at the point.
It's Axel Slijeptrovic then making the way past into the lead of this race. It's 2 Porsches at the front. There's what happened, and yeah, you're absolutely right. The 777 of Michael Rang, who has taken a tour back to pit road, and Jack Sedgwick both getting together there at the second chicane as they come on through down towards Indianapolis for the first time in this second race of the evening, which is a little tough to the brakes. Here's a look, Alex Davidson then, and he got touched by his teammate because of the contact, and that's Davidson around. So Davidson, who won the first race, has had issues as well.
Absolutely big in terms of the early stages here. That 55 going to have to deal with damage. Already 15 seconds back in the lead. Going to be a recovery drive the rest of the way. We have lots of battles. Some cars spun around in the back that some of the others are dealing with. Others up the straightaways are still trying to settle things together in the top 10, like Paul Webster, who just about got himself nearly rammed by Richard Seymour.
I just saw the top of a roof of a car going spinning. I think it was Rapichet, because his name just popped up on my issues there. But yeah, here we go into the Porsche curves, and that is not the way to go around there. So does keep it out the wall though, but drops way down the order to 21st. This opening lap has been a bit wild, and this is what we expected with the reverse grid, but the front 2 are trying to break away from Samways and Sedgley. Liv Sebastian is getting involved in this now, up to 5th place for Leif, up 5 places for Sebastian. It's 4 places gained for Sedgley. Paul Webster's up 3 places as well. Van Rijn, unfortunately for Lars, is going the wrong way.
Yeah, that's how busy this can be around this racetrack in this early stage, especially when you invert like this, right? But Ben Gregory, amongst those who had damage at the early going of the first race, just trying to get a little bit defensive, trying to hold on. Webster's got the pace difference right now. Richard Seymour at this point, I think, just waiting for a chance to be passed by the both of them with how close they have gotten under the brakes, him and Webster.
Ben Gregory we're looking at right now, moving on. I think Andy Archer's had some issues out there because he's dropping down the order. Jack Sedgwick has had issues again on the start of this lap, and I think Sedgwick is going to possibly retire the car. Yeah, he's back to the pits. So here's what happened to Sedgwick, and it was contact with one of those DCW racing cars. Around he goes. I think it was Paddy Faulkner, was it? Well, we'll have a look. Oh no, this is what happened to Paddy Faulkner. So around he gets tagged around. Oh, please no, not on the rejoin. Oh.
Well, that was a one on the rejoin. I understand you have to join the track. Problem is, you don't join when there's a car that close.
On the apex of the corner as well. Mark Fletcher is having issues. He's actually got a black flag as Mark. So he has got a penalty to serve. God blimey, there's been plenty going on in the opening of this race, and we're only a lap and a half into it. Your leaders, Sliptrovic and Stevens, are pulling away at the front. Sedgley has moved ahead of Phil Samways now. So it's Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, Ferrari. Well, there's a number of Porsches up there where we don't expect them to finish, to be honest.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you've seen some of the snaking in this respective pack. That was because of a massive slowdown that Grabowski has still not, until now, just cleared. So at least 7-8 spots lost. That's exactly what we just talked about. You have to slow down, you lose the spots at risk because of how much you have to slow down from the corner cut advantage around the racetrack. But others like Redpath having to be careful here in this. You see the peak out. That's from Adam Watson, who did very well on the strategy last race.
We've got now another driver with a penalty. Marcin Rebicek has got a black flag, so not served a slowdown penalty in time. Ross McFarlane up 13 places already in this race. He is on a charge at the front. Oh, Morgan Butler gets bullied out the way by Matthias Lutchak, but goes to the inside of Arnage. We saw the outside line does work for drivers. On board now with Adam Watson. He's looking forward to these two, and he's thinking, oh, if only I was in a BMW, I'd be able to compete with these two on top speed. But in his Porsche, he's going to have to do things a bit differently.
That's all going to have to be corner speed. See right there, Watson just backing up, looking to see if he can get the angle in. Just not enough even then. But remember, some of these drivers have had some troubles in these opening stages. You have Lutchak just getting very close to these off tracks. You have Morgan Butler, who's been almost running in place in the midst of all this. And now he has teammates with Altitude Esports looking to go and looking to go aggressive. This is what I talked about for the first race up the Ford chicanes.
Here we go to the inside. Can you go too wide through there? No, you can't. There's a little rub. Morgan Butler, I think, will have a slowdown penalty from all of that. Oh my goodness, I've looked at our penalty sheet. There's 4 drivers serving a slowdown penalty right now. So it's just absolute carnage at the chicane. Rebicek and Fletcher have come in to serve their penalties right now as through goes the Porsche of James Bume. So up a position for James, but drivers are picking up those slowdown penalties through these chicanes. It is easy to do. Even running wide through Tete Rouge can really give you a slowdown penalty as well.
Yeah, these slowdown penalties are continuously flowing around, but that's again with how the track limits are so tight and difficult around much of this racetrack is getting situated like that.
We've lost 2 drivers. Rebicek and Fletcher have both decided that they will not continue in this race, and so they have parked their cars. We've got 3 wide down the Mulsanne straight. That could only end well. Richard Simner is involved in that one, along with Ross McFarlane, who's up to 9th place now. He has gone full aggression mode here, has the Scotsman. I say, at the start of the race evening, he's a 4-time champion in this series. He was a quad champion. He won 4 seasons in a row. And, well, he is wanting to get back into the winner's circle in terms of championships for this series. But certainly Ross is on the move.
And again, we it shouldn't be too much surprise with the pace he had in the race. The tough part's going to be, does he have the pace to make up 9 seconds at least over the course of 8.5 laps? And that's yet to be seen, because he now doesn't have a teammate to stay in sync and work with the traffic. He now has the magical bouncing car to pass in Ben Gregory. And while he's got the speed without the draft, now eventually you'd have to wonder if it's going to plateau or if he's going to maintain the pace, because here's the thing. The current race leader, Axel Slepčević, is currently matching, if not the same tempo. You're not going to be able to catch Foley if you match the same tempo each and every lap. You have to pick it up those extra few tenths to a second to be able to really have a shot here.
I think Ross has got an opportunity though, because he's got a little bit of a gap between himself and Lars van Rijn, but I think through the corners he will be able to just gain that little bit of time on Van Rijn, and it is Am versus Pro, so we are going to see that little bit of lap time differential between the two of them. But Matthias Luchak has been following and has been basically in Ross McFarlane's shadow all the way through the opening stages of this race. Head out of Arnage, heading towards the Porsche curves once again. And that's a Slepčević and Jesse Stevens have got a good gap though, about 5 seconds over Daniel Sedgley in third place. If they want to win this race, Justin, they need to keep on pulling that lead out, I think.
Yeah, because as we've seen, once it got to about 6 seconds, it almost became untenable in the last race. Almost wonder if the same thing can come into play here again amongst them, because Sedgley, Sebastian Samboys just aren't making the headline they need to make. But with McFarlane and company here, they are gaining a little bit, but I still don't think it's enough on the tempo.
Well, let's have a look at lap times at the line then. So Slepčević will come across the line. 53.8, 53.5 for Stevens. Look at Ross McFarlane across the line, 53.0. Okay, he's had draft, but he's also had to overtake people in this one as well. Luchak a 52.7. So they are lapping slower than the opening race of the evening here, it was said, because they were doing about 3 minute 50 laps. So, yeah, they've lost about 3 seconds of lap time here.
I'm not quite sure if that's necessarily because of the track, more so just the drivers at the top end on the speed, or at the back of the field where there's a lot of traffic that can hold you up there. But for the most part, again, I think that's around their average pace for the last race, if not nearly identical to some of that for the front runners. It's more so that the front runners from the last race who set that bar currently have to do a conga line to get themselves up back to the chance to show that bar being raised.
As both McFarlane and Luchak make their way past Lars van Rijn, your pole sitter. Van Rijn, though, still in a very good position in terms of the AM points as well. So he is moving through the field. One driver who hasn't been doing so well, Adam Hedgecock, is 25th behind Ethan Critchley, who's ahead of him. So it's Porsche and Hedgecock. You can see he's just on his own here. And this is to give you the contrast. Hedgecock on his own, 3 minute 57.8 that last lap. So he obviously had some form of issue on that last lap, and that's dropped him back, and he's out there on his own. But certainly he's keeping going in his Porsche.
And having his screens keep things nice and bright, you can actually see it a little bit. I'm not sure if it's because of the webcam brightness or in terms of what I think it's more so. You see how bright that monitor looks? That's something you can only do in sim racing, where you can say, it's a little bit dark. You know what I'm going to do? Click your settings, click your brightness, click it up to as high as possible. Then you can see with night vision. No, unfortunately, you can't do that to the night sky in real life.
Give it a good go. Get a good set of headlights, and you never know, as we're on board with him. This is a driver's point of view, by the way. If you ever are in sim, and if you ever thought about racing in iRacing, by the way, new memberships is always there's been a sale going on for a while for new memberships, 40% off, so do get yourselves involved. And private leagues like this, you don't necessarily have to have the license levels like you would in an official race. Now, there was issues in the background, a shot there for Morgan Butler at Arnage Corner. Something's happened to Butler, and James Bume as well has been involved in that one because he's dropped down to 22nd. So there's been drama at Arnage. You could almost say carnage at Arnage.
Well, it was carnage because look, clapping the grass for the 71 Butler. But where do you go if you're Bume? You're committed to the line, already on the bottom of the racetrack because trying to pass by Gregory, so there's no chance to cut the corner to the inside at least to be able to avoid the sliding Butler and avoid minimal time loss. In turn, that massively has cost them both, Bume especially, 23 seconds back. All his progress is gone.
Big stuff for James in this one. Look at the race leaders then. They've got about a 6.5 second lead now over Daniel Sedgley. Ross McFarlane and Matthias Luchak are up to 5th and 6th places respectively. Alex Davidson deciding that now's the time to pit. I think he's pitting a lap too early here, even though he did have that damage to that car, remember, after that mistake, after that contact, should I say. He'll be getting that free repair. You do get a fast repair in this series. So Alex Davidson, not good for him. Number 69, Carol Pakalka, has had issues out there as well through the chicane. Back up and running for Carol. So your leaders, they're still as they were. Axel Sliptrovich and Jesse Stevens first and second place. If you're McFarlane and Luchak now, they've got about a second and a half to Lev Sebastian. They can catch that and at least get into third place, and it'll be a question then of can they charge down those two race leaders with their pace?
I still don't think the answer is yes, because again, only 11 laps estimated. You're talking about having to possibly find the most time in the pit lane, but more so hope that Sliptrovich and Stevens both fall off a bit more than what their current pace is. It's not easier said than done. I'm not seeing the numbers. I think based on the numbers, they need to be at least 7, if not at Sedgley and Sebastian's path, about 6 seconds back nearly, to have that conversation come into play based on raw speed.
Yeah, just looking at their lap times last time, and I mean the leader did a 53.6, 53.7 for second place. Ross McFarlane did a 53.1. So, I mean, McFarlane has got half a second, but when you've got a limited amount of time, because it is a limited amount of laps that we're getting here around Le Mans, it's going to be hoping that the leaders both make mistakes.
That's the one thing you have to hope for at this point. At least one or both of them have a slowdown of sorts, or more so just ends up having any sort of mistakes or step outs. Problem is they haven't really had that so far in this race to do so, and they gotta know, or more so Ross McFarlane should know, what that feel is up there, because he has Stevens up there in his Porsche, mind you, who is technically a teammate who just so happens to share the same livery color scheme, including the yellow with McFarlane.
Yeah, so Jesse Stevens, you're absolutely right, teammate of Ross McFarlane. Of course, the 3 Pure Sims Esports cars, Alex Davidson having served his pit stop. He will have got a fast repair done at that time as well. So change for them. William Guthrie, by the way, has a meatball flag. He is in 16th place, so he's going to have to pit. But fortunately, you could actually pit on this lap, get the fast repair done. That could work out well for William as change at the front. Sebastian, McFarlane's pitting. So Axel Sliptrovich pits. Ross McFarlane pits. Luchak again goes a lap longer.
And you know something else? The entry was so good for Sedgwick, he just may have closed up 2 seconds from that entry alone because Sedgwick kept it very slow. As a matter of fact, I think McFarland feels like he's getting held up by him.
I don't know how, because you're at pit lane speed limit right now. We've got a whole queue of cars coming in for service right now. It'll just be fuel for these drivers. So we've got Slijepčević, Sedgley, Webster, Samways, Watson, Van Rijn, Bocage, McFarlane, Butler, Bume, Archer, Gooch, Guthrie, Critchley, Hedgeclock, Boot, Josh Boot and Paddy Faulkner. They're all on to pit road right now. Slijepčević leaves pit road after 17.9 seconds stopped. 17 seconds stopped for Ross McFarlane, so that's 9/10 of a second gained in the actual box. But, and you alluded to it, Justin, getting held up cone to cone was only 1/10 of a second quicker than Slijepčević.
Yes, but Sedgwick in particular was 7/10 difference cone to cone, even with the pit delta factored in on top of things. So that's partly the play there, trying to throw all the stops out, really. It's still going to be 7 seconds. I still don't think McFarlane can do this unless he gets help, because now he's passed by almost all the help he can get at the rate things have gone.
So looking at the front then, Jesse Stevens leads this one, 6.5 seconds over Leif Sebastian. Matthijs Luchak, who was racing with Ross McFarlane, is in 3rd place, but he owes his pit stop. Richard Simner, Denis Grabowski, Sophia Ridpath, Ben Gregory and Arthur Turtle all owe us a pit stop. So 8 drivers owe us a pit stop here in this race number 2 of the evening on RaceSpotTV. Paul Smith and Justin Prince here on commentary for you for round number 9 of the World GT Championship. And well, we've got an exciting finish to this one, I can assure you of that, because this is going to be that strategy coming to play and how it pans out for those drivers out there today. Right now, Simner and Grabowski, they've changed positions. They're both Pro-Ams. They're fighting it out for Pro-Am position. Grabowski and Simner both yet to pit.
And that's even with Grabowski having a couple different slowdowns here today. So at least solid when it comes to his raw pace in the class. It's more so just staying solidly inside those painted lines without getting every single corner cut penalty possible. But Ridpath is going to be the interesting one to me, because with Lars Van Rijn having a solid day so far as well, is this going to be enough for Ridpath once things cycle on how the AM lead plays things out? Remember, Ridpath was 2nd in that last race in the class, but had the lack of track position really cost this Olympus Esports car.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. As we head on through to the Porsche curves with Sophia. BMW just around here, that BMW seems to be the car to have. It's got the top speed, it can handle the Porsche curves. Yes, the Porsche, you can see it just pulling away slightly mid-corner. Porsche has that bit more grip mid-corner, but Sophia, once you get out the corner, it's back onto throttle as your race leaders now onto pit road. So the rest of the drivers who owe us a pit stop, they're all making their way down onto pit road.
And Ridpath just keeping it a little bit careful with the checkups in front. Believe that Luchak did pick up about a second cone to cone. But this is going to be the interesting mark, about 16, 17 seconds on the average, right? So it's going to be more so how powerful was the overcut. We've seen a few drivers on the overcut pick up a lot of track position despite the same fuel load.
Slijepčević is just coming on to the start and finish straight. Jesse Stevens, missed pit box for Sophia Ridpath. That's a big disappointment for her. But here comes then across the line and out of pit road is Axel Slijepčević, going to be able to get into the lead. And the answer on the timing screen is yes. Back to the lead for Axel Slijepčević. It was a 10th 1/10 of a second quicker in the pits. Jesse Stevens lost time though on pit road, on the actual pit lane. 1.3 seconds Jesse Stevens lost there. So that is the difference between leading this race or being in second place.
There's no other better way to say it, because what's the gap? 1.3 seconds. So that's got to be a bit frustrating there. Here's the major thing, though. In the midst of the cycle, Ross McFarlane has picked up in the past lap on the average about 1 second at least. It nearly said they gained 2 seconds. If that would have been big, that would have been enough for McFarlane to catch. Things getting interesting. Here comes McFarlane.
But look how Matthias Luchak was able to get ahead of Ross McFarlane in the pit stops there.
Yeah.
So Luchak has worked out really good for him to get ahead of Ross and get into third place, just having that extra lap. You called it. You know, some of the drivers getting that overcut rather than undercut, and it's worked for them.
It's dependent driver to driver in a lot of the cases. In this case for Luchak, guess he was quicker once away from McFarlane. Was really just a question what they were doing in the first race. But more so, is there going to be enough time for Luchak to get within the draft of Stevens? Because Stevens is losing lots of ground right now if you look at that interval and fast. If it falls enough, Luchak can potentially use Stevens as a bridge and get to the race lead quick.
Matthias Luchak, how far off of the race lead are they? 3.4 seconds. You got 4.5 laps to gain 3.4 seconds. Now, if you were averaging half a lap, that would only be half a second a lap. That would only be 2 seconds. So, Luchak does still need that mistake, possibly. But what will help him is if he can catch up to Stevens. That'll just help him just draft up that bit compared to Sliptrovic. And if Stevens can just get back into that drafting range of Sliptrovic, that'll really bring Luchak into this one.
Technically, Stevens is at the very tail end of that respective range. The problem is, even with that, he's dropping back based on the projections with that Porsche. Here's the major part. Luchak is within that estimated window as long as he doesn't cut the corners multiple times here. Believe it's going to be that case right there. So I think at this point, even this is enough if he can make the pass efficiently on Stevens to then try and get up to Sliptrovic in the final lap or two. He just needs to be in all-out push mode to do so. He can't go in and back it down. He has to be at full tilt. The hardest he pushes all night has to be now.
And doesn't need to worry about fuel either for Stevens or for Luchak. Whereas Axel Sliptrovic won't be worried about fuel, but will be closer to it being empty than those two drivers. 12 minutes and 15 seconds remain here in this round number 9 of the World GT Championship. Let's just quickly, after those pit stops, bring you up to speed with where people are right now. So the pro drivers are leading. Axel Sliptrovic, Jesse Stevens and Matthias Luchak, first, second and third for those drivers. Pro-Am is led by Daniel Sedgley in 6th place overall, ahead of Paul Webster, who Paul has admitted it's been a nightmare return to the championship, just not got on with the car, and in fact changed car to the Ferrari at the last round. Adam Watson is in 8th place. That's 3rd place in Pro-Am, again ahead of Dennis Grabowski, your championship leader in Pro-Am. In Am, it's Lars van Rijn who currently leads the race for them in 12th place, but Sophia Ridpath, 13th place, not that far off of Lars van Rijn either, so Sophia's had the pace. Will Guthrie, after getting his car fixed, is in 17th place overall.
You mentioned very close on the pace. It's within about a couple tenths of a second, mind you, in that battle for Ram. But you know who also has the pace? You talked about, is this going to be enough for Luchak? Look at that interval. It's closed up and fast. Lots of battles forming. Watson wanting a chance on Webster 2 at the draft as Andy Archer has problems in the back.
Yeah, issues for Archer, but does get going as here's the replay of that McLaren. Oh, and was assisted around flash the head. So you're in the middle of having a spin and you still feel that you need to flash the headlights. Fair enough. Andy, so back onto the Mulsanne straight. Now, the lead gap, you pointed it out. Jesse Stevens down to 0.6 of a second between your two leaders, and Matthias Lutschak is right there with Stevens in the slipstream as well. So the front three are getting closer and closer to each other. Sophia Ridpath for AM has been able to take the lead of the AM race here into 12th place ahead of Lars van Rijn.
Lots of battles, lots of time, right? This is the fun of the invert. But Ridpath's had the pace much of this run. Van Rijn had the track position advantage. That's absolutely gone. And that's what happens when you use 24 seconds in 30 minutes.
Just to keep you up to date with Alex Davidson after his issues early on in the race. He is up to 11th place right now in this race, but we do believe that he's going to have to make another pit stop potentially, although it'll be lap 4 of his stint and it'll be 2 to go. He might just be able to make it, you know, to Alex Davidson. So that'll be pretty close. But at the front then, this is your leaders on screen through Indianapolis right now. And it is Slijepčević, Stevens, and Lutschak is just loitering with intent in that big BMW. And you pointed out in that first race when we had the race between the two leaders of McFarlane and Davidson, you don't want to be leading at the wrong place at the wrong time, do you?
Yeah, it leaves you up for grabs of the draft immediately, whether up the Mulsanne straight, up Mulsanne, through Indianapolis, whether it's the left or the right for the pass, more so the left, or whether it's through Ornage if someone tries to dive back, or, as we've seen, if you're very brave and willing to squeeze your competitor off the racetrack in the Ford chicane. For the most part, there's a lot of chances for you to lose the lead in the last lap. You don't want to have to be in that defensive mode for the last lap. You want to be on the attack mode to be able to take away that chance for the win in those last sectors with no chance for your opponent to bounce back. Here's the problem. Lutschak is there, and this is exactly what I talked about. With him being close, using Stevens as the bridge, he's now on the attack and can pass by both of them with how close he is.
Lutschak is there with your leaders. It's a 3-car train for the lead. Joe, this almost feels like an Indy 500 or something like that, where you want to be the third car in the train on the at the start of the last lap, get the draft and get the run into turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Lutschak has to be smart on how he plays this. He's got 3 laps estimated to try and make this work, if not 2 laps to try and play this out. So for the most part, yeah, it's going to be pretty tight. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same total laps for the last one. However, he still needs to make the right choice. He makes the wrong choice, they lose the draft.
As I go onto the Mulsanne straight and look at that absolute darkness down the Mulsanne straight for them. Ross McFarlane has got up into 4th place and is a number of seconds back now. Slijepčević is pulling over to the side there, going defense. And do you know what? I think there was a little bit of Jesse Stevens and Matthias Lutschak going, no, Axel, you be in the lead there. We're happy sitting behind you right now. We're playing the waiting game. And Slijepčević, now he's got to be careful not to weave too much down the straight here.
Yeah, right now, here's the true test, you see. Lutschak knows he's got the double toe, and it looks like Slijepčević trying to play a little bit dangerous here, defensive up the inside.
Oh, and yeah, Lutschak just getting the position there from Stevens. A little bit wide from Slijepčević there, but okay on track limits. Fortunately, these drivers not really getting affected by the incident count, which can come into effect here. But here we go then. Lutschak's not waiting. He's thinking, do you know what? I think I've got the pace over you guys. And through to the lead then. Matthias Lutschak for that Apex 1 with Simutech team. To the front of the field then in that BMW.
And here's the thing to think about. If any of these drivers get a pass back here, this opens up the door for McFarlane, because the slowdown effect Slipčević, I'm surprised though, saying, you know what, I'm just going to bump draft and settle here.
I don't think he settled up. I think Slipčević, he knows that Porsche has not got the top speed. He's got to try and keep in the draft and try and keep on the tail of that BMW, but I just think that Luchak has got the car advantage here this week, that knows that he can go to the front of the field and then just be able to stay out front and to keep the lead here. So that might be actually good tactics from Matthias to go to the front at this stage.
Yeah, I'm still liking this in terms of that cornering speed, or rather the straight line speed. But this is going to be tight on the clock here. 4:45 to go. We might get a second to last lap. We'll see what this looks like here.
Oh, car 77 has stopped out on track. That's Lars van Rijn. See, a pole sitter has had issues at Arnage. Here's what's happened, and it's that curb again. That outside curb coming into the corner and into the side of him. Do you know what? There was very little that car coming round could do anything about that. They went for where the gap was, and unfortunately, Lars van Rijn got on the loud pedal a little bit too hasty.
Yeah, that is a dangerous spot in the dark, especially to do that, because all he did was try and get back on the gas, went to the inside. Problem is, car committed to the inside, right? It's Phil Samways, who's now going to have to deal with damage the rest of the way. Tough break for Samways. Van Rijn got the worst of it, though. He's got the meatball flag.
Certainly does have that meatball flag, and has taken the tour back to pits. Now, when they crossed the line, there was about 4 minutes and 9 seconds remaining in this race. We could have an extra lap here, you know, and for someone like Alex Davidson, who's done 5 laps already, we don't think that there is 7 laps worth of fuel capacity in those cars. He'll have to come down for a splash and dash.
Yeah, that's going to be very tricky. I don't blame Davidson, especially once those try that strat. It is saving a ton. But it just, again, doesn't seem to work in terms of the track position gaming in terms of that, outside of maybe saving 3 seconds in the pit lane to see if he can do it.
Yeah, so it's all about trying to do a bit of fuel saving, do a bit of whatever he can to just get that extra lap, but I just don't think that there is 7 laps of the fuel capacity in the car, and so he will have to head on down to pit road, and that'll be a tough pill to swallow, especially after winning the opening race. Matthias Luchak is just checked out at the front. 1.6 seconds now between Slipčević and Jesse Stevens and the race leader. So Luchak choosing the right time to get to the front.
Yeah, this is going to be critical if they want to hold on to this position, please. So now, I don't know if Stevens has enough, honestly, to be able to make the pass in these final couple laps here with the way the pace is faring out here. With being able to get that slipstream down, because it's almost like they're dead even. In fact, their intervals on time, just looking at the lap times the past couple laps, has been dead even. I just don't see it unless Stevens can pressurize a mistake from Axel in these final lap and a half turns or something along those lines here. Or there can be that, a massive slow up. That was weird, and it is a slowdown. The 41, Slipčević, having a slowdown after sort of going too wide out of the last corner, has now cost him a spot. Alex Davidson, for reference, has the same type of slowdown currently from the same sector. So 2 cars having big slowdowns in the final couple stages here of this race. This should all but secure it for Luchak. Expecting the white flag this time around. 1 minute to go up on the clock. Final minute of action here in France. French countryside looking very dark with the minimal lights. It's also critical with Slipčević too far right now to try and pounce back. Stevens looking very consistent. Draft the impact right now for Slipčević to be able to keep him within range. problem is it's going to take at least the full lap to get to the bumper, let alone to the chance to be able to make the pass. Oh, and now another slow up. What happened there to Stevens? Jesse Stevens having the advantage. He just had to take a slowdown coming to the white flag. So back-to-back slowdown. Slupčević in one sector, the next for Jesse Stevens. White flag is up. Slupčević, after losing second, gets it back.
Yeah, that is unfortunate for Slupčević and for Stevens to have those. And now Ross McFarlane will be looking forward and thinking, oh, do you know what? I'm just not close enough to catch those two there on track. So at the moment, it is still Luchak who leads. 2.4 seconds now is the gap, has just waltzed away at the front. 3 minutes 50.9 on that last lap. That tells you the speed difference. Davidson and Guthrie have had to make a splash and dash here at the end, and they are dropping down the order. But it is still Slupčević and Stevens second and third place. Ross McFarlane's just not close enough to be able to take advantage of their mistakes. In your Pro-Ams, Daniel Sedgley is still leading that one, but Denis Grabowski is right there with him. And it is BMW versus Porsche in that one, with Paul Webster a little bit further back for him in third place in class. Sophia Ridpath still leads the AMs, with your next best AM being Josh Boot all the way down in 19th place. So not good going for the AMs when they're competing against their championship leader, Sophia Ridpath. But Justin, this has been it's been a different race from race number one. Race number one was very much more sort of calm and a bit more of a procession in terms of not really massive changes in positions. Whereas this one, with the reverse grid, we've seen that real mix-up going on.
Well, that's to be expected when it comes to this racetrack, right? When it comes to how big the circuit is, but also just the amount of variables are going from back to front. It can make it excessively difficult to go from, well, back to front. And that's been kind of showcased for a lot of the drivers. There's been a fair few up the double digits, yes. But a majority of those, like Sebastian, have kept up their track position. Webster has gained a few spots, kept his track position, though he's been top 11 for the most part. And then you have, here's the one that's kind of gone under the radar, the 28. We talked about a lot in Bro. Yume. He's gone up and down twice today, Paul, because remember, he got sent off the racetrack at one point.
Yeah, when Morgan Butler had his incident at Arnage, which your second and third place battle is coming to right now. So Stevens and Slupčević still ahead, going into Arnage for the final time in this race. Grabowski's just taken race lead in your Pro-Am, whereas Slupčević is trying to break the draft of that Porsche behind. Pure Sims, they've got a driver on the podium here with Jesse Stevens, but they want that driver to be on the second step of the podium rather than third step as they're coming through to the Porsche curves. I just think that last opportunity is gone for Stevens. But meanwhile, Matthias Luchak, get this, 22 places gained in this race. Started 23rd, is up to first place, got past the two behind him, and then just waltzed away. The Apex One with Simutek team will be delighted with this, because Matthias Luchak, through the final couple of corners, will take race victory here in round number 9 of the World GT Championship. And it is also Matthias Luchak's first win in the championship as well, so congratulations to him. Axel Slupčević just holds on to second place. Denis Grabowski, it's been a charge through the field for him as well. 12 places gained to take Pro-Am win here for the privateer. And Sophia Ridpath, well, what superlatives can we say that we've not said already about her? It's going to be another AM win for Sophia here in the championship. And it's another AM win for the championship leader, Sophia Ridpath, for Olympus Esports.
Well done for Ridpath on the track position, but for Luchak, absolute perfect pit stop. Because, Paul, that was the big difference, I think, to gain the seconds that happened there, to have a chance at this win. Others like Morgan Butler walking in place, and others just wondering what could have been to close out the day.
Could well have been the day for them. But I'll tell you what, Ethan Critchlow gained 22 places after starting from the back of the grid in this race. But we will give you your provisional race results here. And, well, it is Matthias Lukczak for Apex 1 with Simutech, who takes the win by 3.5 seconds over Axel Slijeptrovic for Altitude Esports. Third place for Jesse Stevens in the Pure Sims Esports outfit, ahead of the teammate Ross McFarlane. Leif Sebastian, 5th place in the 3M UK car. Dennis Grabowski then is the best Pro-Am in 6th place for the privateer, ahead of the Olympus Esports Daniel Sedgley in 7th. 8th place for Paul Webster, Full Tilt V Motorsports. He's for once had a good round here in this round of the championship. Adam Watson just finishes off of the podium in Pro-Am in 9th, ahead of James Bume, who moved up into 10th place in the end. Sophia Ridpath for Olympus Esports is your winner in AM. 11th place overall for her in her BMW, with Richard Simner, Ethan Critchley, Arthur Turtle, Ben Gregory, Morgan Butler and Phil Samways. Then your next AM is Josh Boot for Fat Atom Racing, 18th place overall in the end for Josh, ahead of Niels Bocage. And Carol Pukalka is your 3rd place AM driver for the Full Tilt V SimSport team. Alex Davidson, well, it says that he's classified there, but I can tell you that on my timing screen, he actually retired from the race at the start of the last lap. So that timing screen will need to, those results will probably be updating in just a few moments once the last few cars come across the line. I can tell you that 21st was Andy Archer, so Will Guthrie as well has, of course, had to pit on that last lap. We'll get an updated standings in just a few moments. Yeah, there we go. So Andy Archer in 21st ahead of Adam Hedgecock. Then Will Guthrie then did have to pit on the last lap, finishes 23rd ahead of Chris Gooch. Paddy Faulkner, Jesse Payne Wilkins, Paul Crawford. Alex Davidson will be classified as 1 lap down in the end of this race. So Paul Clist and Nathan Healy will finish 28th and 29th, with Lars van Rijn 1 lap down. Well, possibly will be 30th because Alex Davidson did retire. So the rest of the drivers retiring as well. Marcin Rapicek, Mark Fletcher, Jack Sedgwick and Michael Rack. So that is the results here from today's races. But Justin, that was a tale of 2 different races, wasn't it?
Yeah, one that seemed very chaotic at the start, then calmed down. 2 teammates conquered the field. Then the other race, it was the chaos that reigned throughout the race, but also just showcasing the speed with Lupchak to be able to cut through the field. To do that, but also execute on pit lane, that was the biggest step for that race today. Everyone else in that regard doing very well. Consistency-wise, we've seen that from Sedgley outside of the damage from the last race. There was speed there. Well done to see that gap maintain. Others like Ridpath absolutely utilizing the track position to a key, especially with the pole sitter really falling off a cliff. Lars van Rijn did not even finish after the trouble.
Yeah, it didn't have a good finish to the race for Lars. It's worth pointing out, Matthias Lukczak in that second race was the only driver to actually get into the 3-minute 53s. 3-minute 50s, should I say. Everybody else, I mean, Ross McFarlane's best lap was a 3:51.5, so just could not compete with the lap time pace of Lukczak at the front. Great race for Axel Slijeptrovic. Okay, it was a gain of 1 place in the end, with Jesse Stevens losing 1 place, but you've got to keep the car up there. Lars van Rijn dropped down the order. Those 2 kept the cars up there and competed for a podium.
Yeah, and that's been one of the more consistent parts of a campaign like this, is trying to get yourself into positions to capitalize on spots like this. But I'm really curious in turn how things could play out the next time out as a result of how things played out today, because then you have the extra 20 minutes in terms of rest time in terms of the racing time added, but but just 20-minute action coming up. That's a different beast of an event itself coming around the window with how things are breaking down.
Yep, certainly. And well, you don't have long to see the next round, because in 1 week's time we'll be heading to Spain and to Catalonia for the rounds 10, 11 and 12 of the season. We'll be reaching the halfway point of the championship here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Make sure you join us here on RaceSpotTV from 8 p.m. UK time. But what a drive, what a race in the end for Matthias Luchak to gain 22 places and take victory here in race number 2 of the evening. From myself, Paul Smith, for Justin Prince for joining us here this week, and for Hugo Luis behind the scenes. We'll see you in a week's time. Take care. Bye-bye.